As the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United, Allina Health is dedicated to delivering pro-level care for our Loons. But the partnership goes much deeper than what happens on the field. From our shared support of youth-focused nonprofits like Roots for the Home Team, to championing programs for adaptive athletes with the MNUFC Power Soccer Team, Allina Health and Minnesota United are committed to providing an altogether better experience for Loons fans. Learn more at allinahealth.org/loons. Welcome back to the Sound of the Loons podcast. I am so excited for this episode. I could talk about this guest for a very long time, someone I've known for a very long time, but everybody please welcome the very distinguished MLS veteran, all-timer, Dax McCarty. Welcome to the Sound of the Loons podcast.
Former MLS veteran, you know.
No, you can get out there.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you. And I hear all the applause coming in my head.
So literally. So we will we'll dive straight into it. Dax narrowly missed out on becoming godfather to my nephew. Did you know you were in the running for Braden?
I didn't, but I love
you made the final list.
God, I love Jules. How's your brother doing, by the way?
He's doing well.
He shoots me a text every now and then. I feel like I'm due for a phone call catch up with him.
Yeah, he's definitely much more of a phone call, FaceTime guy than a texter. For those who don't know, Dax and my brother. Yeah, tell me a little bit. How do you know my brother so well?
Oh God! All right. Well, I'll keep it the PG version because we were young adolescents back in the day when we were in residency together. Myself and Julian Valentine, esteemed older brother of Zarek here, elite center back in the day. I will say Jules was one of my favorite players growing up to play with. We were on the under-17 national team together. And then the under-18 national team, the under-20 national team. And then we grew up and we went our separate ways when we both got drafted. Jules, I believe, moved out to LA. I believe LA Galaxy with my boy, Nathan Sturgis.
Yep.
With our 1987 crew. But Jules and I go way back. We had some great battles in the ACC together. Myself when I was at UNC, Jules when he was at Wake Forest. I still remember Jules, one of the most vivid, viscerally disturbing images I've ever seen on a soccer field. I wasn't even there, but when Jules got kicked in the face during a game and just looked like Scarface going down. That was gnarly. But
you want a full circle moment with that one. Yes, that was in the national final. Do you know who kicked him in the face?
God, I probably should know this. Probably like Stu Holden or someone back in the day.
Think longtime MLS enforcer from Central America.
Oh boy. Did he play in college?
Yes, played at Ohio State. That's who they played.
Oh, he played in Ohio State. Oh, I should know that. Roger. Gotta be Roger Espinosa. Gotta be.
It was Roger.
How impressive is that I came up? I was going to say, gotta be.
That's really good. Yeah.
I didn't know that was Roger. Wow, That was fun. Yeah, talk about a blast from the past.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Roger knows our assistant coach, Dennis Lawrence, really well because they spent time together at Wigan. Back with Roberto Martinez. So Roger ended up kicking my brother in the face. I always make fun of him because it was obviously an innocuous play. He's trying to take a ball down. Julian just, salmon it.
Yeah, of course.
In the ball, and then he's on the sidelines. And the gash was he had to get plastic surgery. I think he had about 50 stitches from a scar through the bridge of his nose down, and then there's additional one. Plastic surgery to fix his face. Still looks ugly.
I actually thought the surgery helped him. I thought the surgery made him better looking.
And then I remember he was on the sidelines, like, put me back in. And I was like, you weren't going back in that game. He goes, oh, yeah, no, I knew the camera was.
That was all for show.
He said he knew exactly what he was doing. So,
that's great.
But then you guys, another vivid memory I have of you guys was I was the summer before my senior year of high school, I came back from IMG.
Yeah.
I was transitioning back to Manheim Township and my high school. And I spent the summer following guys U20 World Cup because it was
Yeah.
in Canada. So playing Poland in the Big O in Montreal, I think it was 6-1. Then eventually playing, that
Beating Brazil, our last group game.
beating Brazil. And then it was, you're playing
Uruguay.
Uruguay with Suarez and
Yeah. Cavani.
yeah, yeah.
Zarek, fun story about the U20 World Cup, really quickly. Your brother would remember this vividly, but we played Uruguay in the round of 16. And obviously, a Uruguay team that would go on to have Luis Suarez and Edison Cavani up top, obviously, two of the greatest strikers of this last generation. But the game goes to extra time. So I'm a second half substitute. I come in, I'm playing in midfield, and one of I can't remember who it was. It was either Anthony Wallace. I don't think it was Tony Beltran, but one of our fullbacks got a red card.
Yeah.
So Thomas Rongen, under 20 national team coach, legend of the game, says, "All right, Dax, you're going to right fullback."
Yeah.
So he moves me to right fullback, and Suarez was kind of playing more like on their right side, right? So like as a right winger.
Yep.
And their coach, as soon as he saw that adjustment, he moved Suarez over to the left, over on my side. And he goes, "Hey, just go ahead and run at the substitute midfielder real quick for a few minutes." And so I held my own. He didn't embarrass me. And we ended up winning the game. And we ended up getting in a massive brawl with them after the game. Michael Bradley at the center of that. Which
I remember that because, again, I have a lot of that was at BMO Field, if I'm not mistaken.
It was in Toronto.
It was in Toronto. I remember because I did a day trip from Pennsylvania. We drove 7 hours.
Love that.
Game
I remember.
Drove straight back. And I remember that lineup just because whenever I did my Thomas Rongen impression, Tony Beltran right back, Jules Sturgis, you have Danny Settler playing the 10 next to you, Josie Altidore, Sal Zizzo.
What do you do underneath?
What do you do underneath? Whipping Bolson.
Yeah.
But
what a team that was, by the way.
Pardon?
What a team that was, by the way.
Because Tony went to Europe after that. Danny Zotella went to Europe after that.
Sal Zizzo.
Sal did.
Robbie Rogers went to Europe.
Bobby was the other winger. Michael Bradley was like that team was stacked, dude.
Very good team. Very good team. Disappointing loss in the quarterfinal to Austria. We should have never lost that game. I arrogantly think we should have been in the final playing against Sergio Aguero in Argentina. Yeah. Which, listen, do we win that game? I don't know. We didn't make it there. So anyways, good memories, man. Taking me down memory lane. I appreciate it.
Sightseeing goal. That team was very good. Wally coming off the bench, Mookie coming off the bench. Not mistaken. Just a lot of good pros. And a lot of guys had really good careers, long careers in a bunch of different leagues. And now that are, transitioning into different roles outside the game like yourself now. And take us into a little bit, how's that been? But before we get into that, I want to ask you if you have any memories. Obviously, this is a Loons podcast of playing in Minnesota. You've been in a few different teams. You've played in a few different clubs.
Definitely.
West Coast. You've probably been on Dallas when they were flip flopped a few times. In the off seasons. But take us into some of your memories at Allianz Field, or even at the bank. If you're fortunate enough to play
unfortunate enough to play there, yes, absolutely. I remember we played I believe it was with Chicago, actually. I believe we played a day game at what's the old football field called? Where Minnesota, it's the University of Minnesota's football field.
Yes, I got waxed like 4 times there, so I try to.
Dude, I don't know what it was about that stadium, but Minnesota, we could not get a result there. I don't know if I've ever won in Minnesota. The amount of games I've played there.
I didn't.
It's a tough place to play. I have so much respect for that fan base, and I think everything that they've been through and everything that they provide to the team. I mean, Minnesota United, I don't need to give you a history lesson, but their first season in MLS was rough, to say the very least, right? And so I have so much admiration for what that ownership group has been able to accomplish, and for what that club has been able to do, just taking steps to get better, right? Not in like a glitz and glamour type of way. We're not talking about an LAFC or even an Atlanta United, but we're talking about a team that just methodically continued to just reestablish themselves, learn from their past mistakes, and then just improve and get better. Once they built the stadium, I think Minnesota has become synonymous with kind of a team that does things the right way, right? Never I don't think we've seen the best out of Minnesota United yet, but man, what a team that's stable. I think stability is the word that comes to mind when I think about Minnesota. But yeah, I had a lot of good experiences playing there. But my last memory of playing in Minnesota was with Nashville SC, and it was just a miserable night. It was like 30 degrees. There was a wintry mix coming down. I think there was a weather delay. And so because of that weather delay, Gary Smith was like, hey, listen, it was in the second half. He was like, we're just going to sub you out. We don't want you to have to re-warm up again. I was like, Gary, I'm 36 years old. All right. I'm not geriatric yet. Okay. So not many happy memories for me personally there in Minnesota, but I just have a lot of admiration for that fan base. And now, especially, like, I don't just say this because I'm friends with you and I know you, but for what Eric Ramsey and his staff, what you guys are doing with that team. I'm not going to sit here and call you guys fun to watch just yet, but I will say that you are one of the most stable, consistent teams in the league at this point in time. And I give Ramsey and the staff a lot of credit for that.
Well, first off, my memories weren't very good either. I hated the song Wonderwall because I'd lost it 3 times and had to just keep hearing the fans sing it. We played Minnesota in the Open Cup and then in the league back to back, and I think tied one game and lost the other. So yeah, my memories weren't too fond either. But I want to backtrack a little bit in terms of some of the things you said and just touch on them a bit. I do have a lot of admiration for Dr. Bill and the entire ownership group for creating a unique stadium, one of the most beautiful stadiums in the league by far.
I agree
with that. And then a passionate fan base. You see it with the Vikings, now the Timberwolves, and just the hockey team, the Wild. Is a very passionate fan base that doesn't have some of the spotlights like some of the bigger markets, but it's just like it's freezing cold and we still sell the game out, and it's like uncomfortably cold. So it's definitely I can't speak enough to that. But in terms of seeing us at our best, you bring that up, so I'll dive into that now. How do you feel this is gone? The season's gone for us so far. And everything along those lines.
I feel like based on expectations before the season, and listen, I, as an analyst, right, I tried to do my best to do some research and talk to some people, and based off what Ramsey accomplished last year with your Loons team, I was bullish on them coming into the season to be better. I felt like it was fascinating tactically what he was going to do with 2 starting caliber number 9s up top. And I gotta say, I haven't even been surprised. It's just kind of been par for the course about what I've expected from Minnesota. I expect you guys to be a top 4 team in the West, especially with all the different variables going on in the Western Conference right now. No one other than Vancouver has really, I think, established themselves as kind of that second, third best team. But you guys are, I think, just a beacon of stability, especially defensively. That's where I've noticed with you guys, it all starts defensively with the structure and shape that you play in. I'm just a really big fan of the discipline of all of your center backs, right? A bunch of, I think, grinders, more unheralded guys who I don't think get enough credit. It's funny, Z, I was trying to fill out my 9-week, I don't know, you probably haven't seen it because you've been on the field, but they tasked me as an MLS voice now to put together my MLS best 11 through 9 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, I have to find some way to fit a Minnesota player in here because they've been so good and so consistent. And when I look at your back line, it's like I don't think any center back has really stood out above the other one. I feel like it's a collective effort from everyone. And so what do? I put in Dane St. Clair, of course, because listen, he is the anchor back there. And I feel like while some goalkeepers probably have better statistics and maybe better analytics and maybe more saves because he doesn't face a ton of shots, anytime you need a big save, it's Dane St. Clair. He is there. He is one of the most stable goalkeepers in MLS, and I think he's tied for the most clean sheets in the league. So I don't think it's fair for me to just single out any one defender, but I will say Dane St. Clair has been excellent. Your whole back line's been excellent. I love what Rosales provides as a wingback, kind of a converted midfielder, right, who can kind of do it all. Will Trapp is, Will Trapp kind of embodies what I look at with this team. It's just stability and consistency. That's what you're going to get out of the team. The two the two X factors for me. What was Ramsey going to do up top with the strikers? Was he going to play with two underneath one, or was he going to play with both up top? I think putting both up top has been genius. I think both of them can feed off of each other. The last 2 weeks has obviously been a struggle and a frustration. You guys have been shut out 2 weeks in a row, as you will well know. But I don't worry about that so much because I think both of them are elite strikers in MLS. The really big X factor with your team is Pereira. And he's a guy who I had big question marks about coming into the season because I didn't know much about him. I looked at his numbers from Argentina and they don't jump off the page. Has never been a big goals and assists guy. But this year, I really like how Ramsey's using him as a player who can go find the game, right? He's not really tethered to any one position when you have the ball. Defensively, he plays his role. He's very structured. But again, with the ball, I feel like his service has been really excellent. He created a ton of chances. I believe it was in Toronto where I feel like you guys should have won that game. And you maybe just missed the finishing touch a little bit. But so many things to like about what you guys are doing there in Minnesota. You can probably speak to some of those things better than me in terms of maybe why it hasn't clicked in the attacking third the last 2 weeks. But just really impressive stuff. I don't expect a drop off from you guys because your floor is so much higher than every other team in the West other than Vancouver.
At Target, we're ready to cheer with the hometown fans and gear you up for an epic season. Whether watching from the stands or your living room, score big on game day with everything you need for the win. We're here to be your home field advantage at Target and Target.com. Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of the things you're saying, especially when it comes to looking at our team. The collective is the star, right? And I think that's kind of getting everyone to buy into that. It's not always easy when some of these attacking guys, want to be
Totally.
You have 90% possession, all these different things. But I think we've Coach Ramsey specifically and the staff have done a good job of just getting everyone to understand their role and to think about the greater good for the team as opposed to maybe themselves at times. And to speak to Joaquin. If you listen to the Sound Loons podcast brought to you by Line Health a little bit more often, you would maybe stumbled upon our conversation where I interviewed him earlier this year and I said, he was having a really good preseason, looked fitter, looked stronger. And he was saying he took it more seriously. And I don't necessarily know what that means in his past because he got in here in the middle of the season last year. But I think he's definitely taken a step forward this year. Sometimes it takes guys 6 months to acclimate. I think definitely playing with one less midfielder at times and putting one up top gives him more options to pass and more room to float.
Absolutely
benefited him. And we have a pretty fun matchup this weekend against Vancouver. I think it's 1 versus 3. Give me your thoughts on that.
I gotta say, man, I don't know what Ramsey's process is and what your guys' process is in terms of scouting the opponent. But I imagine when you scout Vancouver, it's going to go something like this. Boys, this is a team that does everything well, okay? I don't think they do anything really at like an elite level, and that's saying a lot because I think actually other than you guys, they are leading the league in expected goals against, which means they are the best team in the league defensively in terms of limiting chances. But when I watch that team play, I just come away so impressed at every facet of their game. I feel like you can pick out little weaknesses of certain teams. I haven't really been able to see a weakness of the Vancouver Whitecaps at this point in time. They've got a back line that's playing really well in Veselinovic and Blackman. They have really stable center backs. Their fullbacks, while they're not big names, they just play a role and they do their job and they're very disciplined in what they do. Their midfield is excellent. I think this is going to be a really, really difficult test for your midfield because of how good Kubas is, because of how good Berhalter's been. And then Pedro Vite, who's like he's like a Swiss Army knife. He basically plays anywhere in that midfield and front line. He plugs holes. And what's been most impressive about them, Z, is the fact that how many teams can miss their best player in a Ryan Gauld and still be playing at the level they're playing and playing at the pace that they're playing at. So I can't say enough good things about what Vancouver's done this year. And honestly, it surprises me a little bit. But I feel like if there's one team that could potentially frustrate them more than any team has this year, I do believe it is Minnesota United. It's going to be a really interesting cat and mouse game. You guys go up there, correct?
No, they come here.
They go there. So that'll be really fun for me to see because I feel like when you guys have played your best, it's actually been when you haven't had to carry the game to a team, when you don't have to have a ton of possession, and when you can just let your attacking players and your strikers go and eat up space. And Vancouver, a big shift this year under Sorensen has been they're a team that uses the ball in possession more.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to worry your backline too much. Brian White is one of the most informed strikers in the league. I don't have to tell you guys that. But again, this is where I love the collective nature of how your team defends because I feel like you'll be able to cut off his supply line. He wants to find gaps in the box. I was watching them against Austin, and the amount of times with ease he just ghosted in behind one of the other center backs and found space without any communication or any tracking of his movement was alarming. You guys I don't worry about that with your back line because you have veterans back there. Michael Boxall's been great again this year. But it's just a matter of you guys have great goalkeeping. They have great goalkeeping. You guys are dangerous up top. They are. It's going to be in midfield, I believe, where it's won or lost. And I think it's going to be interesting. And I don't want you to reveal any trade secrets here, but because you're at home, I do wonder if the home team feels a need to put a more aggressive lineup on the field. You know, I don't know if you started a game yet with Joaquin Pereira, Will Trapp, and Robin Lod all in the same midfield. I feel like you guys have. But I feel like that midfield against Beerhalter, Kubas, and Vite, that's going to be an unbelievable battle in the middle of the field. And I think whoever wins that battle probably wins the game. And this is coming from a former midfielder, so obviously I'm biased. But I really like what both teams do in the attack and in the back line. I feel like it's in that midfield where I think the game will be won and lost.
Yeah, well, Robin, Joaquin, and Will have started the past 2 games in Toronto, and then this
There
past
you go.
With the injury to Sonny Dotson, we've kind of shifted up a little bit. But yeah, I think both these teams, correct me if I'm wrong, fit, are near and dear to your heart for just some of the styles of play. And I think that you could switch in to either of these teams and do really well. With Vancouver, they had a lot of space against Austin. Austin turned the ball over, and they were able to just kind of run and just keep, I think they scored 5 goals that game. And with Brian White and Ahmed and Rios and Sabi, you got some good players that can threaten you, and obviously they're not giving up many chances.
Here's the thing: they're not household names other than Brian White.
I know.
It's just a couple collective guys where you're just wondering how good of a coach is Sorensen, because it feels like he's getting so much more out of Vanni Sartini's team. Do you know what I mean? Like Vanni Sartini had this team playing a certain way in a certain formation. Sorensen came in and added 1 or 2 pieces and said, "We're just going to play my way, my formation," and he's coached them up so well. It's just been really fun to watch their ascension right now.
Yeah, clearly he's doing something right, and he's ticking all the boxes because the team's flying domestically and internationally, right? They have a game on Thursday.
Right.
So it's going to be a battle. And again, as you said, it's going to be a very good chess match of sorts, I think, with 2 coaches and staffs and little tweaks here and there. And for me personally, it's been really interesting to be on the other side of it because we were both players, and you kind of just play, you get in your role, your head down, and you're just kind of, in the moment. Whereas in the coaching staff, you kind of hear some of the conversation. Well, I hear them now, obviously, and then you go in at halftime and you hear some of the discussions and looking ahead and trying to predict what's going on and little tweaks here and there. So the soccer nerd and junkie in me is kind of enjoying it a bit. But I'm excited this weekend. What's nice is it's also a 2:00 game on Sunday.
Love that.
So it's
a game I'll actually be able to watch in its entirety because in my new role right now, when I watch games most of the time on MLS 360, it's a great platform. I love it, dude. It's amazing. Honestly, I think you'd thrive at it as well. But you watch little snippets of every game. Yeah. So it's hard to really sit down and say, okay, if Minnesota's playing Vancouver during the MLS 360 window, well, I can't just focus all my attention on how great of a game that's going to be, So now that it's a standalone game on Sunday, I'll be able to watch it.
You bop around the same screen?
We bop around on the same screen. We've got one screen that's got all the games going on. So it's like 7, 8, 9, 10 different games going on at the same time. And then our main screen, the game that we're talking about and the game we're watching, is going to be just one of the games of the 9, right? Or 10. So you get to see 3 minutes here, 2 minutes there. If there's a goal scored, boom, you're out of one game into another game. So it's difficult. But again, that's why I really do enjoy it, because I do get to see little bits and pieces of every team in the league. Of course, there are teams that are on Sunday Night Soccer or standalone games more, so I know them a little bit better. But I was able to watch, I think, a decent amount of your guys' game, maybe against Toronto, because it was an early kickoff. So those early kickoffs are nice because I get to watch more of the game.
Yeah, for me, again, as someone who you want to sit down, I'm happy that this is going to be a fun display of two teams that are not traditionally top and top and top.
Exactly.
To kind of be put at center stage, that are doing well, that play unique styles, that have players bought in, that might not have the names and all the glitz and the glamour that historically happen in MLS. So I'm really excited for
Exactly.
for the fan base and just for the neutral soccer viewer in general. But
let me ask you a question, because you're obviously coach, part of a staff right now. And as an analyst, I'm curious about your opinion on where you see the Western Conference right now, because I see it as just wide open. You have Vancouver, and then you've got, I would say, 10 or 11 other teams from 2 to 12 who could it can just change at the drop of a hat. I don't see any team really separating from the pack right now, other than maybe Portland, 6 games unbeaten with Portland. But when you analyze, the Western Conference as Minnesota and how good you guys have been, I mean, surely, do you see something differently than me? Where do you see you guys? How do you guys stack up in the West?
I think you put it pretty well, because there's a lot of good teams. And I remember back in the day, you could look at it, maybe for better for worse. I remember being in Portland and being in other places where you could look at a schedule and be like, oh, I think we're going to win this one.
Yes.
We'll get that one.
Exactly.
Oh, against this midweek, they're going to throw it away. We got this. Cool. That's 12 points. Now
Totally.
you can't do that. Now that the parity is even bigger, and obviously the league
thrives off that.
Those guys love it because that's exactly what they want. But genuinely, you don't have games where every game's difficult. And then you even look at, Kansas City makes a coaching change. They've won a few in a row.
Yeah.
Look at the East. New England's won 3 in a row. The parity in this league is getting smaller and smaller, especially in the Western Conference. Every game's a grind. Every game's tough. And
I really like how you put that, Z. I really like how you said you look at the schedule. And even me, when I look at the schedule now and I think like, ooh, maybe this team has an easy game, I'm like, what's an easy game now? What team can you look at? Even Toronto, who's been abysmal. They're 4 games unbeaten right now. Yeah. They should have beat Inter Miami. They should have they played you guys. They played a tough schedule. It's like I can't look at any one team, maybe other than the Galaxy right now, who are just shocking. But it's like when you're sitting where you are in the Western Conference, don't you look at the Galaxy and think, all right, they're going to make a run at some point?
Yeah, again, even with them, these teams are in positions where we knew going to Toronto, Bernadeschi played one of his best games prior to playing us against Inter Miami.
Yeah.
I've seen him play in a long time. And again, even with the Galaxy, you see them now. They have, Painsel's back, and clearly the GM's going to be rubbing his hands thinking, hey, we got to do something here, maybe at the end of the window, maybe coming towards summer. So none of these games are easy. And especially one thing I can talk about to our staff is not looking ahead. And it's so cliche to say that. Oh, God, I hate it. But genuinely, with how good teams are, I find myself, doing part of my job is to look forward to some of the opponents because of my familiarity playing against them and everything like that. But there's just a lot of good players. There's a lot of good players, some players that don't have more well-known names. White, obviously scoring goals for the national team in January, and he's been on a hell of a run. And then they have, Sabi is a good winger. Ahmed plays for Canada. So just the amount of teams that have some players that don't get the recognition that other teams do is something that I think should and will happen eventually. But every game's a grind, and I'm really looking forward to this weekend because it's gonna be a fun one. It'll be a fun one. Hopefully it's not too cold, but
love it, man. I'll be looking forward to watching you guys play, man.
Appreciate it. Well, again, that was it for this week's episode of Sound of the Loons podcast, brought to you by Align Health. Dax, thank you so much for sticking on with me. I appreciate it. Hopefully you'll come back. Maybe one
anytime, buddy. Keep killing it, man. You're doing great, dude.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Really happy watching your success.
I appreciate your insights as well. Always following you guys. I love watching 360, you and Sasha and the guys. Banter's great. If we did start bench cut, I would start you. You would fit well. You'd slot right in to the holding mid.
I love that. You know that strikers and attacking midfielders are all divas. You need that cornerstone.
Defense wins championships. So
love that.
You can play the 6, give you the armband when we get together.
Cheers, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you so much.